What? You were told. They're not looking for volunteers. It's for the society.
It's like, good luck if you die.
Like I was telling you my story. My grandfathers were pilots because, hey, they were told. Now, before we really get into this, I do want to back up a bit because to fit with this really chronologically, we got to talk about where we left off with last week. So first, when I saw you guys last week, we saw that the Nazis broke the non-aggression pact and invade Western Russia. It's what Hitler always wanted. He said, this is what's going to feed the Third Reich. They get as far as 20 miles outside of Moscow when the secret weapon sets in. The Russian winter literally grabs the German army and freezes it in place. Ever since Stalingrad, the Russians are going to be pushing back. They're about to really roll against the Germans and start pushing them out of the Soviet Union and back to Germany. Now, you have to kind of remember something, because we talked about this one last week, the very beginning of the week. When Stalin first gets invaded, he tells the Western Allies, I need you to open another front. I need you to take pressure off of me. Invade Europe right now. And the Brits and the Americans say, we're not ready for that. We don't have the manpower, we don't have the materials, but we will help you out. Do you remember? When we first get involved, where do we go first?
North Africa.
We go to North Africa. Do we have success in North Africa? Yeah. We do. We're going to push General Rommel out of North Africa. We're going to invade Italy proper, but Italy's going to hold on for another couple of years. We have some success, but even Stalin says, that's not what I need. I need a massive front in the West. We have one shot at this. One opportunity. One chance to quite honestly save the world. We're putting all the chips in the middle. If we succeed, then we can defeat Hitler and the Nazis. If we fail, it's going to be another 3 or 4 years until we can try this again. That's how big this is. That's how massive this becomes. When we're talking just sheer numbers of manpower and material, it would take us another 3 or 4 years to mass it all in one spot again. Yes, left hand. Yes. Now, when we get ready for this invasion, we know we have one shot at this. But the plan for the invasion is not necessarily anything that's really out of the box thinking here. It's what we should have done. And in fact, it's what Hitler thinks we're going to do. That's the ultimate problem. What we're planning is a cross-channel invasion. We are going to load up Great Britain with thousands of troops, enormous numbers of supplies. We're going to start stockpiling these starting in 1941, and we're not going to stop until 1944. 3 years of buildup, sending over men and material for one day. If it fails, we could try to redo it. We could attempt it. But it would probably take about 3 to 4 more years to load Great Britain with all those numbers again to get ready for another invasion. Who knows what would happen by that point? It would be 1947 by that point. Probably it wouldn't have worked. We get one chance. We are going to send so much manpower and so much material off to Great Britain that we're going to have American soldiers just living amongst the citizenry in Great Britain. We're going to have soldiers just living in the houses of normal people. There's so many Americans here, the Brits start saying, these American troops are overpaid, oversexed, and over here. Don't get it? They're over here in Great Britain, not in America? Okay, all right. We're getting ready for the single biggest amphibious invasion in the history of mankind. Nothing even close compares to what we're getting ready for. And the man in charge of this is General Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, I will tell you a little bit about Eisenhower. He's very sharp. He's clever. He's a West Point grad. He's a longtime military man. But Eisenhower's area of expertise is not necessarily like battlefield movements. His area of expertise is logistics, organization, getting man and supply where they need to be. It's probably the single best pick you could have had, because trying to organize all this is just a logistical nightmare. We're going to have multiple waves working in concert, where one wave depends on the other one doing their job and doing it correctly, and timing it right, and even getting the weather to cooperate. We're about to prepare for the biggest invasion in the history of the world, and we're going to do it on probably the most unforgiving waterway in the world. Trying to go across the English Channel is hard, because at this part of the world, there's really never good weather. I've been to England on multiple occasions in the summer, like in July, and it gets to like 55 degrees. That's why we left England, okay? That's why we're Americans now. America. Nah. On the English Channel, on a normal day, like a day that is cooperating, you've got swells that are like 6 feet tall. On a day where it's not cooperating, you're going to have 20-foot swells in a tiny little landing craft, going up 20 feet and then dropping 20 feet. The plan is we're going to invade Fortress Europe when Hitler knows we're coming. And we get one shot. If things don't go right, the world can end. Not to mention, we need to catch Hitler off guard. We need to achieve surprise. If we don't achieve surprise, then these landing crafts probably won't even make it on the beach. Because what Hitler has created is a very defendable spot. Now, the fact that we need surprise with this means that even before the invasion happens, Eisenhower has his hands full on how to deceive the Germans. He needs to make them think that the invasion is coming from somewhere else. Now, I will go ahead and tell you, when Eisenhower's planning this, he looks at his option. We're loading up Great Britain, and he says, really where we need to go is one of 3 places in northern France. We can either invade in Normandy, the northern part of France. We could invade right here in what's called the Port de Calais, or we could invade right over here in western France. And he weighs some options. Now, I'll go ahead and ask you guys. Does western France look like a good option?
No.
Not really. It's like the farthest way to travel. You're on the English Channel even more time than you have to be. So even Eisenhower says, nah, I don't think that's the best idea. So we have 2 spots. I'll ask you guys, what do you think is a better spot, Normandy or the Port de Calais?
Normandy.
Eisenhower looks right here and he says, well, this is the narrowest part of the English Channel. This is the fastest way to go. However, what was it? I think I heard Alex?
It's the most obvious place to
It's the most obvious place to attack. So here's Eisenhower saying, I need to make it look like we're going to invade there. I need to deceive the Germans. He has some tricks. One of them is an American soldier that died in an accident about 3 months before the invasion. Now, he died, but his body was intact. And Eisenhower says he has one final mission. They take this soldier's body, put a parachute on it, and also in his pocket they put invasion plans. They made up plans that said the invasion will come right here. They took his body, flew it over northern France, pushed it out the plane, and he floated down behind German lines, where the Germans found the invasion plans. They start thinking the invasion's going to be up here. Now, you got to build upon this deception. So Eisenhower had some other little tricks. Now, I can't get into all of them, but I'll tell you this little story. Eisenhower knew that the Germans were flying over Great Britain all the time. They were reconnaissance planes. They were taking pictures of movement, what they were doing. So what Eisenhower did was he took a bunch of these American and British tanks and rolled them into southeastern England right here to make it look like they were amassing right in there. He did this during the day, and at night he rolled the tanks out. Then, just on top of the tracks, Eisenhower had some of his engineers make these. They actually look really lifelike. They're inflatable tanks. So these tanks look very lifelike, but they're really easy to move around. So if I do have time, I'll show you this video, because there's video of just an American soldier going to the bottom of this tank and just flipping it over and just rolling it away, because it's just a giant balloon. It's really clever the way he does it, because what he decides is the invasion comes here. We're going to hit Normandy, and we get one chance. Now, there's a small window throughout the year where this invasion could happen, where the weather cooperates. And that window is probably about 6 weeks long. You can maybe successfully launch an amphibious invasion within about roughly mid-May to early July. That's your window. If you don't hit that window, you got to wait till the next year before you can try it again. Eisenhower sets his date, and he says, our invasion will come on June 5th, 1944. I can see the confusion here, so let me explain. On June 5th, the invasion gets ready. We're putting men into transport ships. We're ready to gamble. We're ready to push all the chips in the middle. When a very young meteorologist, he was 26, comes up to Eisenhower and he says, stop the invasion. There's a storm coming in. You could lose the whole invasion fleet. Or maybe not. I don't know. And here's Eisenhower asking this guy, this 26-year-old, and he says, well, is it coming or is it not? And the meteorologist tells him, he says, no, there's a storm coming, but I think there's kind of a small window in there. You'll have probably about 12 hours of good weather. What do you want to do? And Eisenhower said, okay, well, when's the window? And the young meteorologist said, well, it's not going to come today. It's going to come on June 6th. It's going to come tomorrow. So Eisenhower says, postpone the invasion. We wait till June 6th. Now, as I've told you guys, I ask you to remember very few dates. This is one. This is a day that will change the world. It's also very important for someone else. Now, I want you to think back. Do you remember? There's a German general that has this very strange relationship with Adolf Hitler. A general that failed him, but was spared. Do you remember who was that German general who was in North Africa, who lost North Africa? Ethan, remember? Rommel the Desert Fox lost North Africa. Now, I told you this story last week because if you fail Hitler, usually what happens is you just disappear. You just go away. But Hitler really liked Rommel, and he trusted him. And he was probably his best general, so he told Rommel, I don't need you in North Africa. I have different plans for you. I need you in France. I need you to build up the defenses against this eventual invasion. Rommel's in France on June 5th, 1944, ready for an invasion. But June 6th is Rommel's wife's 50th birthday. Rommel gets the same weather report that Eisenhower does. And Rommel says, there's no way they can invade on this day. The storm's coming in. he leaves France and goes back